happy Wednesday to the world out there, and happy post-draft day, gentlemen. How's it going?
Fantastic.
I'm stoked or something.
Stoked.
Psyched, stoked, pumped.
I got a Pacifico with a lime going.
Nice. Gentlemen, we concluded the 11th NFL draft by one Pete Carroll and John Schneider. Lots of opinions flying all over the board. I have my opinions. I know you guys have your opinions. But that virtual draft, real quick, what did you guys think? Was it any different?
It was different, but it wasn't bad. It worked.
I mean, except for as what people are calling the tragedy porn, except for that.
Right, what was up with that?
I don't know.
That was weird.
Like single person, like, yep, their dad died, their mom got killed. Yeah, that guy.
Here's the bad thing that happened to them.
Like, and like when you started like putting it, I mean, like there's always been some element, not always. There's for the last few years, there's been some element of that, but you wouldn't like, include it in the main graph. Like somebody gets picked and they put the graphic on the screen. It's like 4.4540, 36-inch arm length. Mom struggled with drugs for 16 years. Like it's like a primary stat. Right. It was so weird. Other than that, though, I really like the format, and like I think they're actually have accidentally made a hole for themselves. Where I think people are actually going to prefer that format. We didn't have the pageantry, but football fans don't want pageantry. They want like the bare bones cool stuff, right? So
I think what they found out is they ran out of filler, because usually you can like show the athlete in like the room, and you can show them talking to someone like, oh, maybe they got an agent calling, or maybe a team's calling them. So there's like that filler video that they can just kind of create on the spot and speculate. But because everyone's like in a feed and they don't want to just like live broadcast as recklessly, they had less stuff to fill out. But I felt as if also like maybe this is just from a Seahawks fan perspective, but I feel like they were less prepared for people to actually be drafted.
I think you always get that impression when you're following the Seahawks picks, because like that's like, I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean, yeah, I mean, people were using as evidence that the Seahawks messed up, even that's not. But like, you know, like Jordan Brooks wasn't one of the families that had like a camera crew in their living room. So
right, and it's not even about that. It's not even about having like the camera crew ready to like show the expression or the reaction, because they had a couple players. Obviously, they got footage of once they got drafted and all that. But I also felt like there was like the delay of when a player got announced, because it was really pretty much like Roger Goodell in his living room or in his office or somewhere, like reading out these picks, and there's like virtual fans like screaming at him on that television behind him. I definitely felt that there was a lot of things that they felt like, oh, well, we're just going to do the traditional draft stuff and make it work. When in actuality, there's a lot of things that don't transition well. So they were just kind of caught off guard, and I felt that was like the one knock against it. Which, again, to be fair, this was the first time they've done that, but it's almost as if they didn't like understand like what it would be like to do all of these things virtually. But I think for the most part, they did a really good job.
I think they didn't screw it up, which I think is the main thing. Like I think a lot of people expected.
Were you slightly disappointed though? Like it's like I'm not a car race guy, but I used to when I was younger occasionally watch like the Indy 500 or whatever. But like I mean honestly, I was waiting for the car crashes, right?
Yeah.
I was slightly kind of looking forward to like what glitch was going to show up, or like were they going to have to pause it so you know Goodell could go get a beer or whatever. Like I was waiting for like the that kind of stuff, and it never really came up. So I mean that's good and bad.
Yeah, there was two things that really stuck out to me that didn't go well. Was Goodell can't talk.
Yeah,
he said so many things wrong, and wrong
Vegas is
years.
Getting the 2020 draft, you guys again.
Yeah,
yeah, you get to do it again in 2 years.
And then when they clearly like they had those cameras in the family's living room or whatever, and then you'd be showing them during the pick, and they're emotional and stuff, but then like. They would cut away, and then they would go back to it, and it was clearly like somebody said, "Okay, celebrate."
Right?
Yeah.
Like they're directing them. Okay, now get up and cheer. And it was a
Did
little
you be a
too
little
obvious.
happier?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is apparently the NFL and most likely ESPN and anyone else that was broadcasting, there was one draft party that had more than 10 people at the residence, and they chose not to broadcast that draft party. They haven't said who it is, but obviously it's someone that wasn't shown during the draft. So I think that was pretty good to see. Because
It would be pretty easy to figure out then.
yeah, but I mean, here's the thing though. Like, this is an opportunity that these young people they're never going to be able to experience again, and I feel bad that this pandemic took that opportunity away from them. So I don't say that it was justified if they decided to flagrantly disregard any orders that would have had, but I also commend the NFL for saying you know what, we are doing a lot of work to talk about the shelter in place for a lot of cities and states. We're not going to show this kid getting drafted because we don't want to send a mixed message. So,
Well, you theoretically could have said on almost all of them anyway, because especially the first round, nearly every person drafted, their agent was in the room. And
right, which is obviously not a family member.
I really doubt those agents had hung out in that family for the past 6 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on the state and city. But
right,
but yeah, that's easy to overlook. Then you've got 20 people in your house. What are you doing?
Right, exactly. But I think for the most part, I we talked about it last week. We were expecting, there's going to be a lot of bugs, and I think the bugs that ended up happening out is there was just a lot of stilted transitions. Like, they're used to only being able to do this in front of each other, so transitioning from one analyst to another or cutting from one scene to another, it was just a lot slower, and that's what made it feel, I think, less polished than what we've seen previously, because again, this is a new opportunity for them. But still, I watched it on ESPN. I don't know what channel you guys watched your draft on.
Yeah, I watched ESPN too.
I watched the NFL Game Pass feed because I'm in Tokyo. Yay. I don't have an option. That's how I watch it. But I don't know. I didn't mind it at all. I really, really liked it. I thought like many things during this crisis here, there's going to be a reevaluation to something. I think some things are being forced to happen because of the quarantine, that later on, once the quarantine is done, people are going to go yeah, but that kind of felt better, or that kind of was something we can expand on. We don't have to go back to what we did before. So it's going to be interesting to me. If next year or the year after, maybe things are back to normal, will they go all the way back to normal? Are they going to go back? Do they want to have the thing where there's 50,000 fans and it's just massive screaming, or do you want it to be more about the football? Because that was the thing this time, because you couldn't do all the crowd shots or whatever. There was much more analysis and much more talking about players. I thought, there was a little bit of dead space here and there, but even that made it feel live and real. Not everything has to be that polished, and that's not even always better TV to me.
No, I totally get what you're saying, and I think
that feels like something that's kind of happening right now. That's cool to me.
So Tony chiming in on chat, and he's saying that Good Morning Football and Total Access both said that they'll have a hybrid version. So we don't know exactly what that means, but I've heard that report as well, that there's a lot of things that they saw as a positive. This was obviously one of the biggest sporting events that have happened in recently. J. Adams 2001, thanks for chiming in. The thing that I really enjoyed, and to kind of copy what you're saying here, Ross, is the focus was much more about the players and the football. And I think, again, what happens is it shows kind of the failure of the national media is that they can't talk about players fitting into the role of a team unless it's super obvious. They can go on for days about the Bengals needing a quarterback and Joe Burrow's fitting that mold. But if it's they drafted a tight end in the first round and he's a great tight end, but does this team need a tight end? Question mark. That shows you just how bad from a national level some of these analysts are, because they only can look at the surface level stuff, right? The Patriots did not draft a single quarterback in the draft, and everyone immediately says, well, obviously they messed up. Obviously they made a big error, because there are plenty of people they could have taken. But from a team perspective and a team construction, there's not always the players that a team can take. And then on the flip side, you have the Packers trading right in front of the Seahawks and picking up Jordan Love when they already have Aaron Rodgers?
That's the big one people are talking about, right? Like that it's all now it's just controversy. They want Rodgers out of there and this and that, but I don't know.
I was shocked that people are shocked and talking about it on this level. I mean, like the dude's old, and I mean, even in my mock, I mean, yeah, let me plug my one success because man, I wasn't very accurate this year. But even in my mock I did for the entire NFL when I did the first round, I had Green Bay Packers moving up exactly because of that. I mean, I figured at some point they're gonna have to have a backup plan, right?
Right.
And Rodgers has been showing signs. I mean, we've talked about this. Rodgers has been showing signs of decline. You can hide it statistically because he throws the ball away a ton.
Right. He's not willing to make the bad mistake, so he'll throw the ball away and take an incomplete.
Right.
Which is like the complete opposite
that's
of
not,
Russell
that's not
Wilson.
something he had to do in the past. He had the arm and he had the flair to make things happen. And now I think I read that he has also, like, not just does he throw the ball away the fastest, he decides faster than everybody to throw the ball away, which might be just like the experienced veteran reading things, but it's also like you're not willing to let anything develop at all and like trust your players and maybe some magic happens.
Which is like the anti-Russell move, right? Russell Wilson's willing to hold on to the ball until like 5 guys are like up his cornhole, but he'll find that one play like every game and you're like, wow, how did you find that guy? Like, how did you get open? How did you make that move?
It makes me feel like Aaron Rodgers now can be manipulated. If you make the right pre-snap move, if you've moved the right linebacker to the right gap or something, or, you know, move somebody, motion somebody into coverage, it makes me feel like you can psych him out into it's a bad thing and he's just going to throw the ball away. He's looking to throw the ball away.
Very true.
And if you're at that stage in your career, there's probably a better fit for you somewhere else because Green Bay's kind of retooling in a sense, right?
Zeb, they took 0 wide receivers, as Tony points out on the chat. What is your take? What real quick? What are the Packers doing? Is this the Brett Favre to Rodgers transition that everyone thinks it is?
I mean, it sure is looking real similar, isn't it? It's like, okay, if you don't think Rodgers is done, then you need to surround him with as much talent as possible and give him an opportunity. Because if you look at the receivers he's had as of late, not the most inspiring bunch, right?
But at the same time, if you're moving to a rookie or a second-year quarterback next year, wouldn't you also want to get him the weapons? So I don't think that's the reason behind it. My own take.
For sure, either way. They need weapons, whoever's their quarterback. But I think when you still have Rodgers, arguably in some semblance of his prime, and there's guys right there available to take at the spot, it's questionable that they don't.
Is he like a lesser Cutler? Is he just becoming a turd and like the turdiness is starting to outweigh the talent?
Hard to say, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's how they feel.
Or like, is everybody just so sick and tired of his?
Yeah,
I mean,
I feel like Green Bay looked around the league the last couple of years, and despite what Seahawks Twitter says, I think they've kind of said we want to be like the Ravens or we want to be like the 49ers. We're just going to run the ball a ton. So they've gone out and they've got a third quality back with a quarterback who can deal with that situation, doesn't have the ego. Like if you tell Rodgers, dude, like we're only going to let you throw the ball 25 times a game sometimes now. That dude's not going to be cool.
But at the same point, you're paying him $35 million a year. Doesn't make sense not to let him throw the ball 30 times plus a game.
I don't know. It's about the quality of the throws. I mean, that goes back to
I agree with you, but again, from his standpoint, it's got to be something that's in a discussion, and it's a new head coach. And how often does a new head coach stay less than the aging vet? And I think that's there's a lot of tea leaves to be read. Tony chiming in real quick saying McCarthy is going to be laughing at them all season. I think that's very possible. But this is the Hawkscast podcast, and we're gonna flip back over to the Seahawks here real quick.
Go Hawks. Oh wait.
So this is the first NFL virtual draft. It's in the books, and the Seahawks come away with 8 picks, one of the lowest totals in the Pete John era. And the Seahawks confused a lot of fans by drafting in the first round instead of trading back and selecting a middle linebacker with the 27th pick overall. The draft is not over after one pick, as they did select 7 more and traded up twice this year. This is a Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. And let's jump into topic number 1. We've already kind of talked about the draft as a field, but Zeb, I want to know, did you get what you wanted in the draft? Did the fans get what they want in the draft?
Yeah, I mean, no and yes. I mean, I was I knew it wasn't going to happen, but I'm like I've mentioned before, wide receivers are my thing. I'm always wanting the best wide receiver available, even though I know they're never going to do it. So I was a little disappointed when like a guy like Mims was there that we could have taken and we didn't. But when it's all said and done, looking at the list of guys we did get, I see a lot of potential there and good. It's always a crapshoot, right? You never know until these guys get on the field and play for a year or 2 years to know what kind of player they're going to be. But I see a lot of upside, and the more I look at our number 1 pick, Brooks, the more I think that he's going to end up being something special. So ultimately, I'm pretty happy with the haul.
What about the fans? I don't know if you were online, if you saw what was going on for the Seahawks Twitter, but do you think the fans got what they wanted? Not just with this first pick, but all of the picks they ended up taking.
I don't know. It's such a mixed bag, right? Like I'm watching guys who are stoked on every pick, and then there's guys that hate every pick. So I think ultimately whenever you draft like the Seahawks do, which is taking guys early that nobody expects you to take, people think you shouldn't take that early, a lot of the fans walk away disappointed. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's, the general feeling of how things went.
Yeah. Ross, what about you? What were your thoughts going to the draft? We talked about your mocks last week. We talked about what your Seahawk focuses were last week. Did you get what you wanted? Do you think the fans got what they wanted?
Like they say that one of the bad things about fantasy football is that people start rooting even against their own team. You start rooting for a player and things like that. There's something similar when you start getting invested in mocks, you do, because then you start thinking like, you not like you've got the better answer, but you just, you fall in love with certain guys because you've spent a bit more time on certain people and you really, really want them. And if you don't get them, you tend to feel disappointed. But at the same time, I quite liked who they picked. I felt disappointed actually in myself. I did worse even than last year, man. Like, I didn't get any picks exactly right. I got 2 of the top 3 were like on my list of alternates. Darrell Taylor and Damian Lewis, but I didn't have anybody down. So in that sense, I guess I didn't get who I wanted or thought they'd take. But I'm really overall quite happy with who they got. I don't know. I didn't want. I'm the anti-Zeb. I didn't want to take a receiver because our number 1 and number 2 wide receivers are set. And yeah, it's a historically great wide receiver thing, but if you're looking for competitive advantage and you're looking for ways to improve your team, any wide receiver we pick is going to be the 3rd or maybe even 4th wide receiver this year. So that means you're looking at 3 or 4 catches a game or maybe just 3 or 4 targets a game. So how much is that going to elevate the overall team, I thought? Like, if we had a better wide receiver 3 last year, would that have won us any extra games?
Yes.
Maybe. Yes.
I
mean, in a sense, because Lockett got hurt down the stretch. But I don't know, like the wide receiver 3's influence on the game is not as edge rusher or a more effective guard or some of these maybe like even less sexy positions. But
real quick about that whole wide receiver thing, and I think what it comes down to, and I'll let you continue, but Russell Wilson does not care who he throws the ball to. He will throw the ball to anyone. If he thinks you're open, he's going to throw you the ball.
Right. It's not that.
That's why it's unique. Whereas, like, to Zeb's point, yeah, even if you want a wide receiver, it's like Russ will throw you the ball. If he thinks you're going open, it doesn't matter like where you were, where your draft is, how good he thinks you are. He's going to throw you the ball. And we saw that. We've seen that throughout his career. We saw that with, what's his name? Chris Harper? Matt Harper? What's the dude? Chris Matthews? What's the dude?
Chris Matthews in the Super Bowl, whatever, suddenly like, he's an all-star for a game and then never heard from again. I get it. It's not. I'm not saying it's the pedigree or the position. I'm just saying like when Lockett's out there already and Metcalf's out there already, and we're not going to become a super pass heavy team all of a sudden. It's the math. I mean, and we have 11,326 tight ends as well that need a catch. Like, there's only so many balls and so many opportunities to throw the ball. And is it going to be a more quality, throw or a more quality play if it's to the third wide receiver rather than Metcalf or Lockett? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can upgrade. Like, if you consider David more like a 6.5 and you pick up a guy who's a rookie and he's an 8.0, so you've increased your standing at that position by 1.5. But for example, you plug in a guard who's actually going to be healthy and he's an 8.5 and you're replacing his a 7 or a 6.5. Now you've gone up 2.0 and that's for every play. So I don't know if that makes any sense. If you can follow what I'm trying to say is, I don't know, you can get players who impact every play.
Right.
And impact to the same degree, but every play, not 3 or 4 plays a game. Again, it was a historically great wide receiver class, and so maybe people feel like it's a bit of a shame not to pull something out of that. But that's the thing, though. Like, is taking the second or third linebacker going to impact your team more than taking the 7th wide receiver, the 7th best wide receiver, versus getting the second or third linebacker? I mean, it's not as sexy for sure, but I like it. I want people who are going to impact every game. And plus, how many times we say, like, Bobby Wagner seems to still be good in the sense, and KJ Wright still seems to be good in the sense, but we're not seeing any impact plays out of the second level, right, and even the third level. So I felt they addressed that. I'm excited for Jordan Brooks. I'm excited for Darrell Taylor, especially. Damian Lewis, I was already saying there's a 50% chance he starts, and they got rid of Fluker, so he is starting. Colby Parkinson, I don't know where that tight end room is going to look like. I don't know. I mean, I think it's bad news for Luke Wilson, and that's sad because that dude's cool. But yeah. and even Alton Robinson, getting somebody with that much potential at edge that late, I'm pretty stoked for this draft. I know fans are disappointed. I know people wanted wide receivers. I know they wanted the sexy picks. Even I was fantasizing a little bit about. I fell in love with a couple players I would have liked, but I don't know. Fans obviously not happy because everybody's always a draft expert at draft time.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the last time Seahawks fans were happy after a draft.
Yeah.
I mean, really. I mean, like, even Russell Wilson, some people really did like him. Austin, looking at you. But a lot of people were like, "Why are we doing that? We already got the guy from Green Bay," and it was one of those people. That was like our best draft ever in the history was probably that year, and I was mad. So I've learned, like, I don't get mad about anything. People are like, "Oh, you're a Pete apologist." I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm just like, I don't know.
Right.
And also the final thing is like, and then we can move on. But like taking some of these people like quote unquote too early, the teams are much like have many more sources than we do. I mean, anybody can evaluate film, and you have a full right to have your opinion. But it's not just about that, right? They're in that world. They have a much higher chance of connections that will give them the rumors that say like, hey, Philadelphia's going to move up and take that guy, right? Like in the Russell Wilson case, like Russell Wilson was a quote unquote reach until you find out, and it's pretty well substantiated now that if we hadn't, somebody else was going to move up and take him. So
yeah, Andy Reid wanted Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, and they ended up with Foles instead.
Yeah, exactly. But like Jordan Brooks is a classic person like that type. Like people had said because of how the thing went this year that the media had it more wrong than draft pundits had it more wrong than normal. How teams' boards were really looking. Jordan Brooks is like a classic case of that. Like I think the media and especially analytics guys, they go like, well, that's a dinosaur position, but I don't think teams look at it that way. And probably Jordan Brooks is a classic case of somebody was going to get taken a lot earlier, and Darrell Taylor as well.
Yeah,
so that's where I'm at.
I think the problem that we will always see is there's almost 3 different people thinking about it. You have the media, you have the team, and then you have the fans. And the thing is, we get more access to the media than we do the team. So we are going to hear more about what the media says, like this player is great, this player is not great, this player is rising, this player is not rising. We don't ever hear what the team wants to do until it's already happened. I think there is one thing that kind of messed things up for the Seahawks, and the fact that they did have a trade lined up with Green Bay to move their 27th pick and go back from 27 to 30 and pick up like a 4th or extra 5th round pick. But that fell through because Miami gave them a better deal because Miami had a bunch more picks to trade for. And that
they had better building blocks as well, yeah. Yeah.
So I think that is something that I think for not for like a huge aspect, but that was something that did impact what the Seahawks wanted to do, because we know that they have a proponent, an idea that they always want to trade back. But what they did was, and what I wanted, I thought it was really well. I don't know how Jordan Brooks fits into this year, and I think a lot of this draft is also not just for 2020, but it's also for the future. And as you said earlier, KJ Redd and Bobby are on the team, but KJ Redd and Bobby on the team are going to be they're always going to be a year older than what they were previously, and that means that they're not going to be as good as they are. Jordan Brooks, the comp that everyone's saying is he's Bobby Wagner 2.0. He's as fast, he's as aggressive, he's got that downward speed that really attacks, the running game, and if needed, there's no reason to think that he couldn't transition that into attacking the quarterback. It's just one of those things that college players just are not asked to do more than like a few things.
I think that's getting so overplayed. He had 3 sacks.
He did have 3 sacks, but he's not like middle linebackers are never really running up the middle to get sacks, right? That's just
I know.
There's a lot more traffic trying to come up the middle than there is off of the edge, and that's why it's usually linebackers on the outside and DNs on the outside that are getting the sacks. So I
bet Jordan Brooks has 6 sacks this year.
But that's the thing, though. There's no reason to think that he can do. And we've always talked about, man, if they just blitz Bobby up the middle, he could get to their quarterback. But they choose not to because he's so much more versatile.
Bobby tends to have for a year or so.
Right? So there's a certain element that we don't know what anyone's draft board looks like. There's a certain element that we'll never know. The thing that I saw immediately that I had to respond to was once Jordan Brooks got drafted, I wasn't like yes or no on him. I was just like, okay, that's who they took. He's Bobby Wagner 2.0. That's awesome. That means we'll have 2 Bobbies on the team. But what people are always looking for is they're looking for like that magic bullet. Like everyone thinks that they're just missing one piece, and then all of a sudden, doesn't matter who else you pick, you could only have one pick that entire year, and that's the player that's going to all of a sudden evolve your team into a definitive Super Bowl contender. And that's just not the way the Seahawks build a team. That's not the way. They don't invest in just one position. Like there's so many years where even they had kicking competitions when it looked like they had a clear-cut kicking winner, but they still brought in someone to compete. So I think that at the end of the draft, looking at all the picks, I think the Seahawks definitely got what they wanted. The only thing that they didn't get that I thought we needed more assistance with was more secondary help, but I think they tried to address that by Quentin Dunbar and Quandrell Diggs in the season before. And they signed a bunch of guys on a bunch of undrafted free agents that they picked up for the secondary. So we'll see if that bodes well.
They picked up a dude yesterday, right?
They picked up another corner yesterday off waivers. I think it's from Miami.
I think it was in Jacksonville, right?
Oh, you're right. Jacksonville. Sorry, it's a Florida team, but yeah.
Staley or something like that.
Yeah, and you know what? The fans, I hate to say it, but the fans are often wrong. So it really doesn't matter what they think.
Yeah.
Final thoughts on getting what we wanted for the draft.
I mean, I'm pretty happy with looking at it now, looking at it as a whole. I think it looks pretty good, so I'm excited.
I'm just wondering if there wasn't at least one more tight end we could take.
Well, Steven Sullivan's technically a tight end wide receiver combo, so
he's gonna play wide receiver for them, and he's not gonna make the team, but he's gonna hang out on the practice squad. I'm interested to see what Freddie Swain brings.
Yeah, I do want to talk real quick. Ross, you were talking about Damian Lewis, the offensive guard from LSU. That's a pick that I'm actually really excited about, because if this is a guy that played on the number 1 team in college, played in the SEC, which everyone says is like NFL light. If he is a true run grade guard, that means that position is potentially set for the next 4+ years, which I think is very exciting to see because that's a position that was really banged up last year. So if he can be healthy and he doesn't have any injury concerns, I think that's awesome because he was graded as one of the best run blocking linemen in the game.
I think, and I'm not willing to put this in pen yet, so it's pencil, but I think we're looking at Damian Lewis and Phil Haynes. Phil Haynes going to make a run this year, and that's going to be our interior guards and kind of solidify that for 3-4 years. I'd love for that to happen, but I really feel good about it.
Who's playing center?
Sorry, what? That just broke up for me.
Who's playing center this year?
What's that dude's name? BJ, what? The guy they signed. And I forgot his name all of a sudden. Finney. Yes, Finney's contract looks like he's the center, with Joey Hunt playing the ideal backup center again. No ego, dude. So I think it's going to be Finney. I didn't think so when we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but I now think Haynes ends up taking that spot from Upati, who's more maybe at this point like the ultimate backup because you can't really trust that dude to get. I know he played 15 games last year, but he had several games where he wasn't 100% either, and it showed up. Phil Haynes didn't like make it to camp or anything else, just so he kind of lost his year redshirted. So I think Haynes will take that from him in camp, and I think we're going to look at. So interior should be Haynes, Finney, Lewis. And that should be pretty good. Dwayne Brown on the outside, and then
Brandon Shell from the Jets on the right side.
Yeah, we should be improved on the line this year. And by the way, I think Damian Lewis got a bad rap. People said he can't pass pro, but he can. He had a bad game against some really, outstanding edge rushers, or interior rushers. But I think he can pass pro as well.
All right. Well, let's move on to top number 2. This one's a real quick one. Top number 2, Ross. Who are you hitching to your rookie bandwagon?
Jordan Brooks, but that's the boring answer because he's a first-round pick. So I'm gonna use the word all the kids are using. I'm standing Alton Robinson. Am I using that right? Am I standing Alton Robinson?
Yeah, that'll work.
I think that dude's. You can't usually get production out of that late as an edge rusher, but I think that dude's legit.
Alton Robinson over Darrell Taylor.
Darrell Taylor's awesome. Like that dude's, but that's not first, second, third round. It's like rooting for the Yankees. You know those guys. I want to root for the guy expecting. I don't want to root for the Tokyo Giants. I don't want to root for the New York Yankees. I want to go for the guy expects to be good and it's going to be awesome.
Yep.
Zeb, I'm afraid of dudes named Alton who play edge, but I'm going to overcome that fear.
Zeb, do you have a rookie that you are going to be rooting for?
Yeah, I'm really excited to see DJ Dallas, running back out of Miami, because there's a good chance that he might get some real playing time depending on the health of the guys that are ahead of him on the roster.
Plus, his name is DJ Dallas. He's out of a football.
And it's DJ spelled out Deejay.
Right?
Yeah, that's pretty quality.
It's badass.
I'm a little bit afraid of meeting his parents, people who name the kid that and spell it out. Do they not understand their friends who named their kid DJ that was short for something? They're spelling it out D-E-E.
Maybe they didn't want to confuse for disc jockey.
Going, are you sir? Sorry, what?
They didn't want to confuse for disc jockey.
You're right. I guess it's.
They wanted him to be.
I get to see the hospital. His name. I've never seen DJ spelled out like that. Anyway.
You guys took probably the 2 more likely dark horse candidates for rookie bandwagon fandom. So I'm going to go the easy route. I'm going to say Jordan Brooks. The more that I've watched this guy, the more that I've seen him play, the more highlights that I watch of him. I would love to see him start as outside, and then maybe once Bobby shuts it down in a couple of years or so, he does move inside and he's middle linebacker. But what excites me about him is that he seems to tackle really well. I kind of feel like he has that Seahawk tackling where he doesn't try and hit your body. He tries and hits like your waist and below. Tries to wrap your feet up. Yeah, and I think that's almost what you have to do if you're attacking a running back, because he's not the biggest guy. He's only 6 foot, which is kind of close to Bobby's size. But if he's gonna attack like a linebacker that's also gaining speed, it doesn't make sense to kind of hit him up high. He's gonna take him down at his feet, which is a very Seahawk way of tackling. And he was one of the top tacklers in NCAA football. So I'm gonna go the easy route. I'm gonna say Jordan Brooks. I do have a question for you guys. If you guys are going to get a rookie jersey, would it be the same person or would you pick a different player?
It would be different. If I bought a rookie jersey, which I'm not going to do this year, but if I did, I would probably buy Darryl Taylor.
Okay.
I'd go Brooks.
You go Brooks. And again, we're assuming we don't know what number they get, but yeah, I'm not really sure where I'd go. I'd have a hard time because
if you say Damian Lewis, I'm going to slap.
No,
because he's going to be. But you can't buy a jersey
unless Damian Lewis wore like a really cool jersey number. And offensive linemen always get like 60s and 70s. So maybe if he got 77, I would get a Damian Lewis. But yeah,
that's like a tackle number though, not a guard.
I would you know what? This is what I'll probably do. I'd probably get whatever defensive end has the weirdest number. That's who I'd probably get at this point because I have no clue who I'd want.
Dude, why don't you get the comeback player and get Bruce Irvin?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, we I'm looking at rookies only. You know what? Here's the thing. If I'm going to get a rookie jersey, I'm going to get Anthony Gordon. Washington State kid, undrafted free agent, potential backup for Russell Wilson. That'll be my guy. If he has a cool jersey number, I'll get him.
Okay,
dude, you didn't even get Alex Magoo's jersey.
Yeah, but Alex Magoo was like fighting for the 3rd spot on the team. Like Anthony Gordon's going to be fighting for the backup spot.
We should all have a Magoo jersey.
Alex Magoo's father still Twitter.
That's pretty cool. He was
because
super
I was
nice.
kind of standing during that training camp, so that dude followed me.
Nice.
We already talked about the rookie, so we're just going to move on to topic number 3, and this is the Hawkscast Corner topic number 3. Zeb, are Pete and John actually good at the draft, and are they helped by having Russell Wilson on the team? This is a lot of comments that are happening. I really want to point out 2 people that I have spoken to on Twitter. So first off, Austin, lots of opinions. Love to have you discuss it more, but he was very, very upset with Jordan Brooks, and he was one of the many people that was talking about, Pete and John are living off of the 2012 and the 2011 draft, and they haven't done anything since then. And then someone like Ryan Davis, Mr. P-Hawk, he said, I dug the draft, loved everything about it, wish they couldn't have gotten a few more picks. Whether that was sincere or not, it was said, and I'm going to read it sincerely and think positive intent. But Zeb, are they good at the draft? Have they shown you in this 11-year span that they're doing a good enough job?
Well, first, let me say that I definitely get a really good chuckle out of people that get upset over draft picks, like that they get angry because it's not who they think we should have taken. That really, I just love that. It's delicious. It makes me feel good on the inside. I think that they're good at the draft in a certain sense. Like, I think they're very willing to take risks and pick on guys that aren't necessarily certain to do well because they have, it's high risk, high reward. And I think that's, that definitely doesn't work out all the time, but when it does, then you look brilliant, right? So I appreciate that about that. Yeah, of course, I would love it if they could be a little bit more consistent. Like when we take a guy I've never heard of in Brooks, and then the following pick after us is the Ravens taking Queen. And if there's one thing we know, it's the Ravens know how to draft linebackers, right? So when you feel like, why did we reach for this dude when Patrick Queen is sitting right there for the taking, and clearly the Ravens like him. So, but when it's all said and done, and you look at the list of guys you got, I think they filled a lot of needs, and they drafted guys with a lot of potential to do different things, a lot of guys who are diverse in their skill set. So I think those are the kind of guys they look for, athletic guys that can be asked to do more than just what their position says they're supposed to do. So I think they're good at it in that aspect. Are they helped by having an all-time QB? Absolutely. Imagine if we were every year still looking for that guy. It puts you in a good place to be able to take those risks and make those reaches and swing for the fences the way they do.
Yeah. Ross, what about you? Do you subscribe or take any issue to the idea of John and Pete being actually good at drafting?
It's not an easy answer. I think they are, and I really dig that they sort of moneyball the draft. I like the fact that they don't evaluate positions; they evaluate sort of micro skills. They don't look at they don't seem to look like, are you good at pass rush? They look at, what's your first step, or what is this, or what is that? Like what they look at when players, they look at a smaller portion of a skill set rather than a skill. And I like that. And that helps them identify what's going to fit in their exact system rather than a player, just, in general. They don't look for like a defensive end or look for somebody who can edge rush. They look for somebody who is really, really good at their first three steps. They look at somebody who's really good at the left-hand punch. They look at, things like people who can kick step, things like that, or who will be able to kick step. They look for skills, micro skills that identify positions rather than the overall. And I think often that works out, and then sometimes you can kind of fool yourself. And we've seen both. But I like that approach. If you just take the approach that every other person's taking, every other team's taking, you can't get competitive advantage. You just can't. If you all go into the draft with the exact same philosophy, then if you're picking 28 or 26, you're not going to win. You can't. It's just not going to happen. It reminds me of them. They actually have in the books way better. Go read the book. Where it's just like, if you're the Oakland A's and you're playing against the Yankees and you're drafting exactly the same and building a team exactly the same, but they're dealing with $27 million more than you can't win. Right. If you go into the draft with the exact same draft philosophy as teams that draft in the top 18 picks, then you can't win. So you better find a different philosophy and you better go with it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, you started with a handicap because you were so good the year before. So whatever. So in that sense, I think they are good at it. And again, I think maybe they need to reevaluate how they approach their top pick every year, because that really consistently is not working out. And at this point, maybe Jordan Brooks does work out. I hope it does. But overall, in what should be the easiest pick, they don't have a great record. So maybe they need to self-scout a little bit on their approach to the first round. And then again, this is a good example. I think Jordan Brooks is going to be a really good player, but the guy taken one pick later, Queen, that's one of the guys I said that I thought maybe was one of the people they were targeting that might convince them to stay in the first round. And he was there, and they just let it go. And if Queen ends up being awesome and Brooks ends up being so-so or good but not great, we're always going to wonder, that side-by-sideness there. And maybe and they don't seem to like, that's the little thing. I wonder if they're, at this point in the career, if it's just crept into their thinking a little bit where they don't like the obvious pick. Like originally it was only purely before reasons, but it's sort of become their thing and their signature. And maybe they're reading their press clippings just a tiny bit at this point in their career, the 11th draft. And they want to, I don't like the expression get cute, but they maybe want to be the genius. So they want to take the unorthodox pick maybe. So I'm not sure. But I do think that maybe at the top of the draft, you don't have to as much overthink it. There should be a little bit maybe. It's not so bad to go obvious first round sometimes because there's a reason it's obvious, right?
Right.
I don't know. But overall, I think they are. And yeah, of course, they're helping Wilson, but I don't really like that excuse. When's the last time, Trent Dilfer, I guess. When's the last time you won the Super Bowl and you don't have a great Like every team is helped by having a great quarterback. That doesn't mean you're not good at anything else. Doesn't mean the coach isn't good at anything else. Because the opposite also happens. You can have a great quarterback and waste his career. Arguably, Green Bay's are going to end up wasting Aaron Rodgers' career.
Right. 3 NFC championship games, only 1 win, only 1 Super Bowl. And
Dan Marino only ever went to 1 Super Bowl. That was his second year and never got back again.
Yeah.
You can waste a great quarterback's career.
Yeah.
It's easy to do.
Yeah. Tony chiming in on the chat saying differentiates what's coachable too in regards to selecting their players, which I think is a really big thing. Because the Seahawks, and they've talked about that a lot with their offensive line philosophies, a lot of these offensive linemen in college, they don't play. And I think that's a thing that maybe if you don't watch a lot of college ball, college football is really different from NFL football. There's a reason why they say, oh, they play in a pro system, they play in a spread, they play in a air raid, they play in a pistol, and it's a very different philosophy from traditional NFL, and it's because NFL defenses are just that much better than college defenses are. It's not uncommon for every game to turn into a shootout because defenses just can't keep track. They just don't have the same player skill sets. Whereas the NFL, even the 32nd best team in the NFL still has a much better defense talent-wise than a lot of teams in college and the way that they can play. Everyone's just bigger, faster, stronger. So to that degree, I'm going to answer and say, yeah, they're definitely helped out by Wilson because they don't have to worry about the most coveted position in the league. Not having to worry about your quarterback, knowing that he can compensate and account for a lot of things that you can kind of cover because he's so good. It really, really helps out, and they definitely take advantage of that. It allows them to say, we don't need to draft a wide receiver in our first 12 picks. We can wait until the 6th and 7th round. We can wait for a guy that's just going to be a giant target for our guy to find. I think what comes down to is when you look at, is John and Pete a good drafter? It kind of depends on what is your expectation, because there's hits and there's misses. There's obviously guys that don't pan out well. Tony chiming in again says you can't count a 4-wheel accident as a miss with me, Leek McDowell. That's really hard to say. You have guys like Jermaine Ifedi who gets drafted in the first round, plays his entire career as a starter, but he doesn't get re-signed. He doesn't even get like a multi-year deal. He gets like a vet minimum. So there's things that you could definitely evaluate. But a lot of it comes down to, like, what are your expectations for the team? I think what Pete and John do, I don't want to say that they get cute, but what I think they do is they're so focused on finding, like, the diamond or looking beyond what their traditional teams are looking at. They kind of do get caught up in a little bit of trying to find, like, okay, why isn't this guy so amazing when we view him so good? Like Jordan Brooks, people say that he was a late second round pick, but the Seahawks obviously liked him in the first round, and they said, well, if we didn't get him at 27, we would have traded back to 30 and picked him then. But then you hear reports like, oh, well, X team was going to take him at 32 at the top of the second round. And the Seahawks know they can't wait until that pick because you only get so many picks per round. And I think what happens
you don't get to pick where you pick. So
right. So that means
where you are is where you're slot.
And the closest thing that I can think of is, let's say you have the number 1 pick in your fantasy league. You don't get a pick until, if you're in a 12-person league, you don't get a pick for 22 more picks. So whoever you pick has to be good enough to compensate. Yeah, you get the 24th and 25th pick, but you still have to wait 22 more picks until you go again. That's a long time. That's a lot of players to miss out on. And sometimes that means that, you know what, I really want this person on my team. That means that I'm going to have to take them almost a full round earlier because they're not going to last when they come back around with me. And I think that's
why you always take Russell Wilson in the first round.
Yeah. But that's the philosophy that I think Pete and John understand more so than anyone else. It doesn't matter that you guys rate him as a second round pick and we rate him as a second round pick. We don't pick until the end of the second round. So that's almost a third round pick. We have to take him here because we're not going to get a chance otherwise. That's hard for fans to understand. I think that's really hard for fans to like comprehend, because we talked about it a little bit earlier, Ross. We said, well, everyone missed on Russell Wilson, but the Seahawks took him. But then there's all these accounts of someone saying, oh, well, if he was available, we would have taken him 5 picks later. You don't
Well,
know
now
what's going to
everybody
happen.
says that.
Right. You know?
Everybody says it now.
But it's one of those things that you can't avoid, that other teams get to pick too, and sometimes they're going to take the guy that you want. So you either have to act now or be willing to lose out on them.
Yeah. I mean, last year, for example, it was a bit of a disaster. Depending who you talk to, there's different levels of how much of a disaster it was, but it's a good case of just showing if you really believe in a guy, you got to be aggressive and get him, because if you assume he's going to be there, and if you really believe in the guy, he may not be there.
Yeah.
Last year, I don't think it worked out how the common perception is, but it's possible it does. And like, it felt like they slid back, and then they assumed they would still get their guy, and then their guy wasn't there, and then the other guy that was going to be there wasn't there, and all of a sudden, you're taking LJ Collier, who maybe didn't have the rookie season you want out of your draft pick.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
True.
All right.
Final thoughts on John and Pete and their draft capabilities?
Seen worse.
I mean, it feels like it's been a while since we drafted somebody who we know is going to be an all-star, but until last year, DK Metcalf feels like he's going to be a star. So
yeah,
maybe that's a good sign.
I mean, in their two previous drafts, they already have 2 Pro Bowlers, so it's not like they're missing out. Like people,
do you count the punter?
Yeah, I think you do, because you only get one in each conference.
True. I guess you do.
Right. I think the disappointment is that he regressed from his rookie year. I think that's a disappointment, but that's not on John and Pete.
I think he picked it back up by the second half of the season. The first half of the season, he was, to be honest.
Yeah. But I mean, the fact that they've gotten Pro Bowlers out of their last couple of drafts, I think that's a positive sign. I think that you can definitely see that there's a lot of groundwork being laid out for players that are going to be consistently valuable to this team.
Yeah. Agreed. All right.
Let's wrap it up. Let's get on to topic number 4. Ross, what would a short NFL offseason mean for the regular season? We're talking about 2020. We're talking about football. And normally the NFL schedule is announced at least a week before the NFL draft. Their NFL PR department is saying that the NFL draft is going to come out Friday, May 9th. So that's a week from now. What do you think is going to happen here?
I mean, are we talking like just shortened season, or do you want to just talk in general? See.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen?
I don't know. I'm old enough, unlike you guys. I don't think you guys remember the shortened 1987 season.
I do, but just barely. It's vague.
I was 6 at that point.
Yeah. Gosh, you guys, man, making me feel old here. No, one of the coolest things about that Steve Largent coming back a game before everybody else came back and getting to play against scrubs. And you get to see Steve Largent having a dominating game that didn't happen in the 80s. He had 15 catches in a game. 15 catches by Steve Largent in a game. Anyway. So for what does it mean for this? I don't know. It means like a lot of statisticians and like younger statisticians are going to be upset because the football cards the year after are going to have weird numbers. That really bothered me in 1988 when I bought my 87 football cards, and like top rushers have 450 or 500 yards instead of 1,200 or something. That really bothers you as a kid. What does it mean overall? I don't know. It's going to be like conference play only or division play only. Maybe a little bit sort of baseballish, where you might get one game against opposite conference. I don't know. It's going to look weird. To the degree, like, if it really looks like it's going to be really, really truncated and there's going to be a lot of risk, I know there's billions of dollars on the table, but you may end up still canceling. I don't know if you could play. I mean, I guess you could play like an 8-game season and just cut everything in half. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have a lot to add on this topic because it's all up in the air. I actually had discussed with somebody previously the idea that they may sort of all end up being a biodome. Which normally you can't ask people to do in a normal job. But if your average career length in the NFL is 3 or 4 years, and you're going to lose a year of that to the coronavirus, and that means also you're going to lose $1 million or 1.5, or even just if you're like a rookie late round, like $500,000, that's a lot of money. So I thought like these players might be willing to sort of live in a sort of a quarantined bubble where they all live together in a bubble and they only interact with each other after they've all been tested, and they kind of live this weird existence for a year, and it would still make sense economically because it's millions of dollars, and they would have the captured market because maybe no other sports get played this year, and the NFL could manage it maybe, and even the stadiums would be empty, and even the workers in it would have to be quarantined. But again, like if I said to you, this year you can either make $0 or you can make $500,000 for 6 months. You have to live in a quarantined hotel that's connected by tunnel to the stadium. Are you going to do it? You probably would if that's your one chance at making a jackpot in your life.
Yeah, I think that also points more to like what we saw in the offseason with the players' union being split. The veterans opposed the deal, but the ones that are on shorter contracts that are guaranteed less money, they were more willing to say like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take an extra $500,000 guaranteed because I wouldn't get that normally."
This might even really unify. I mean, like Russell Wilson obviously has a lot of bank, but it's still at the same time. If I say to Russell Wilson, like, Russell, you can either live for 6 months bubble and make $35 million, or you can not. You can stay home with your family, but you don't get $35 million. $35 million is a lot of money, even for. So I think it would be a unifying fact. I think in most players it would be a favorite, except for those maybe the end of their career and I think most players would do it. I don't get to work on this stuff full time. I don't know the feasibility of it, but I do think it might be an option. But if they're going to do it, they got to start thinking about it seriously really soon now.
Yeah. Zeb, what about you? What do you think if we have a shortened NFL offseason, what's that going to mean for the regular season?
It depends on how short the offseason is. I mean,
4 games.
There's going to be a long offseason, most likely, right? Just not a lot of football action going on.
Right.
I think the NFL is going to sort of do everything they can to proceed as normal until they absolutely know that they can't. Obviously, as far as OTAs and training camp and stuff like that, it's already going to be weird and different and out the window for now at least. But like you said, they're going to release the schedule next Friday, and it'll probably be a normal-ish schedule with the hope that it'll work out somehow. Otherwise, I've heard talk of delaying the start of the season till like mid-October and then playing through with no buys and no Pro Bowl and having the Super Bowl at the end of February. Which, if this was a case of knowing everything was going to be fine by, August, September, I'd buy into that. But I think the fact of the matter is a lot of us believe that there's going to be that second wave, especially once the weather starts to cool down again. So I'm not particularly optimistic about even getting a season at all. So if it comes down to it and we need to play an 8-game short season, I guess fine, but I would definitely rather not have to do that. So
yeah,
I think the NFL is going to hold off on making any definitive decisions about that kind of stuff until their hand is forced.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a certain amount of pressure do you think Trump is putting pressure on the NFL?
I think Trump is putting pressure on a lot of entities to try and get back to work. He's trying to have it both ways, but yes, I don't think he's necessarily pressuring like the NFL per se, but I think he's definitely in the ear of a lot of people saying like, what's it gonna take for everyone to open back up again?
I don't know. I feel like I have the vague sense that he's trying to. I don't know if he's successful, but I have a feeling he's attempting to put it, because of the timing, a little bit more on the NFL than he is in things, in other sports anyway, not other things. Obviously, he's ordered the meat workers back no matter what. But as far as other sports, I feel like the NFL, because of also his relationship with football, and quite frankly, I think he likes football more. But I think he himself is putting more pressure on the NFL than maybe is on other sports.
I think it would mean more if he could like put that and say like, I'm the one that helped bring back NFL to the fans. Like that's gonna attract a lot more of like his base than it would be like any other sport.
I brought hockey back.
Right, exactly.
Like,
I think what we're gonna see is I think the NFL they'll release the schedule and it'll be a regular 4-week preseason and then 16-game regular season and playoffs and say all the dates are confirmed. But what's gonna happen is there's gonna be asterisks on all of those dates. There's gonna be asterisks on so many of those things because what we're seeing with this pandemic with COVID-19 is that all the projections are worse than the reality has been worse than the projections. So everything that has been predicted, the number of impact, the number of cases, the number of deaths, the number of people losing access to things, whether it's their job or employment or all these other things, it's been worse than everyone has predicted. And I think a lot of that is because people are not willing to do the really, really difficult task of trying to keep this thing down. And I think the NFL for their part, they've done a pretty good job of putting out a message saying like, hey, stay inside, stay safe, we'll get through this together. But the problem is always going to be it's not only do you have to have as much of everything contained as possible, but it just takes a few knuckleheads to kind of screw everything up, right? So what can happen based upon what the NFLPA has said and what the NFL organization has said combined is NFL is not going to open up if there is any state that has a stay at home order. Whether that's a state that has an NFL team or not, if any state of the 50 in the United States has a stay-at-home order, the NFL is not going to open up. And I know a lot of states are working together so that way they can kind of roll things out effectively, which I think is great. I don't know if we're going to see this really seamless transition where people kind of go back to normal. I don't think it bodes well. And I think what's going to happen is NFL is going to paint the picture and this is what we're going to do, but they're not going to be able to do it, and they're going to have to roll back a lot of things. We're already seeing that in other professional leagues, and these are leagues that are, in their own respective ways, as popular in their own country. France is not holding their La Liga teams. That's a really, really big thing. And there's so much, and NBA and baseball, they're scrambling to try and figure out what their season's going to look like. And they don't have any positive outlook. And I think that's the unfortunate way that the NFL season is looking like for 2020.
I mean, if I had gone ahead to decide, I don't think it will be a season.
Yeah. And
such a somber thought.
It is. And Tony brings out a really good thing. He says that fewer rookies and undrafted drafted players make the roster in a shortened off season. That's kind of what a lot of media had talked about, especially Seattle media, saying the players that Seattle drafted, they're players that played 3 and 4 years at school. They're a little bit on the older side. They're people that they are hoping can transition with a shortened off season because they're more prepared. They've had more reps, so they're not going to really need a lot of schooling or training to kind of get them up to speed. So I think the Seahawks are kind of trying to get players that kind of fit that mold.
I think that a lot of technology will come into play. I think, with all this stuff happening, players are going to be on their own and training virtual. I think there's going to be huge pushes in virtual reality kind of programs and things that teams are going to fund and get them out there.
Sure.
Which could be interesting because that means in 3 or 4 years, it means that could hit the commercial market as well. But getting rookies a look at what the football field looks like in formations in virtual reality, right?
Right.
There's going to be a huge push at stuff like that. I mean, there's no way teams aren't investing huge amounts right now. And it's actually going to become a has and has-nots because teams with less effective GMs or presidents or less forward-looking or technologically inclined people are going to find, I think, this offseason.
Yeah, and the risk is
in front of that.
The thing that people don't really think about is the risk is these rookies sign their contract, they go to the OTA, and then they're free until camp opens up again. So
there's no OTAs this year. That's all.
I know that, but that's what we've seen traditionally, and that's always been a team's biggest fear. Once they sign their contract and they finish rookie OTAs, and we don't see them until training camp, there's so many things that could go wrong, and that's what we saw with Malik McDowell. We see that with other teams in their history, but I feel like this potentially could be worse because there is a chance for people to get relaxed and allow one mistake to really create a domino effect.
Well, I mean, when you come back, there's obviously going to be, you won't risk that. When teams come back, if they actually have training before you actually, you're obviously going to have to take a test and then be quarantined for 2 weeks or 20 days.
Yeah.
There's no way they risk that. So, and then again, like I was talking earlier, then presumably you sort of live life in a bubble. It could literally be like an actual physical one.
Yeah, for real. Hey, the Seahawks, they used to practice in a bubble back in the day.
They did. Bring that sucker back.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on here. We got some predictions here for you. We talked about it a little bit, but Ross, I want to know, yes or no, is Jadeveon Clowney going to re-sign with Seattle? Jaron Reed took back his old number, so he got paid to give up 90 for,
Yeah, but that means he just sets himself up to get paid twice. And so I'm going to say it's really looking bad, but I'm going to say, just based on other things that happen, I say he does resign with them.
Zeb, yes or no?
I've lost hope, but I hope I'm wrong. No.
Okay. I'm a little bit like Ross. I'm a little optimistic. I think what's happening is a lot of teams, and I think Clowney is kind of seeing the same thing, is they're not willing to invest a lot of money in a player that won't know their system. So I think what will happen is familiarity will win out. Clowney will sign like a short deal, like a 1-year deal with Seattle, which leads me into my second prediction question. Is Clowney going to re-sign deep into training camp if we get one, or is he going to sign beforehand, Ross?
Just before. He's hoping to be able to do like if that's not going to be on the table at all, that this is his best option and teams are running out of cap money, he'll sign before. Yeah.
Zeb, if Clowney signs with Seattle or another team, is he signing well before the offseason, or is he going to sign right when camp is like in the middle or kind of the beginning of camp?
If he comes back, it's probably going to coincide pretty well with the start of camp, I imagine, which will probably be late. What would normally be deep into camp will be just before camp.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Zeb. I think that even though I'm predicting that he signs with Seattle, I think that the offer is going to be on the table and say, like, look, I want to sign with you, but I'm not going to sign until camp starts, and just do like kind of a wink, wink, nod, nod, like, yeah, we're going to sign, but I want to do it on my time. Ross, is undrafted free agent Anthony Gordon going to be our backup going into this season? Yes or no?
Are there any? I mean, I don't believe they'll get cap. So, yeah, sure. Yeah, local boy makes good.
Zeb? Washington State alum Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, no, he's going to coog it.
He's going to have a great preseason, and all of a sudden he throws like 5 picks in a row.
Bring back Magoo.
No, Seahawks have shown that there's only one guy that they're willing to trust as a rookie, and that was Russell Wilson. I don't think they're willing to sign another guy. They're not gonna let a rookie be the backup. That's not how I think they look at that backup position. They'll try to practice squad him, but I don't think he'll be on the opening day roster.
But there's nobody else available, and they haven't signed anybody. Who do you think they bring in then?
I think Geno Smith, BJ Daniels. I think those two guys.
I'd like BJ Daniels, but the fact they haven't done anything with that dude so far makes me think they're not interested.
Yeah, I think it's possible, but I also think that they freed up a bunch of cap space, so they obviously have plans in motion.
Yeah, but you don't free up cap space to sign BJ Daniels.
But they're going to bring in some guys though. So who knows?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, they're going to bring in. I agree. Like, up to now, they haven't really trusted that level of rookie as the backup kind of thing. But the way the moves are structured does make me sort of think that they might believe in this dude. It makes me really think there was something they didn't like about Geno last year. I mean, we don't get any of the news. He's just the backup. Nothing comes out. But
yeah, but also
it's a little weird that
Gordon's going to be a lot cheaper than Geno. That's like another factor.
Yeah. So, I think he's got a better shot than this short and weird offseason may hurt him, may help him. Maybe like the Seahawks are also thinking there's not even a season, so we just got to get a year to get this guy up to speed.
Possibly. Ross, yes or no? tight end jersey numbers in the 40s. Currently 41, 43, 45, 46, 84, and 85 are available for the tight end position.
If you're going to have a tight end in the 40s...
We lost Russ. Sorry, you said what?
Oh, sorry. If you're going to have a
right as he says it again, it gets cut off.
The only one like is legit is 48.
48.
I mean,
Jacob
for
Hollister.
some reason, like, I mean, yeah. So, and Swoops wore it one year during training camp.
Swoops is like 47.
He has. I mean, he's been on and off the roster so many times. He just takes whatever's left. So, he has worn 48 as well. You're gonna have to. The tight end room is crowded. There's not that many available. So there's going to have to be one. But if you end up with 41 or 43, like, you better like be talking to agents and find out what other teams are tight end need.
Right. Zed, what about you? Is it acceptable for your tight end to be in the 40s?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a guy in his 40s. Greg Olsen.
Give Greg Olsen 41
all week.
He trusted by a jersey like, no, you're stuck with this. This
you have to give him a jersey number that matches his age.
41, Greg.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a guarantee that there's going to be a tight end in the 40s, which I think is like super weird. Unless you're like an H-back that also plays like in the backfield, you really shouldn't have a number in the 40s unless you're like. No, it's just weird. Jersey numbers in the 40s for me are just I don't like any player in the 40s. So I'm going to say no.
Fullback. You don't like fullbacks?
Derek Fenner, Chris Warren.
Fullbacks can be in the 30s though. They can be in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And Max Strong was 38.
Sherman Smith was 47.
Yeah,
Smith.
Back in the day.
I mean, we're not talking about fullbacks, but 47 is a cool number because it's a prime number. But yeah, I mean, you have a lot.
David Hughes was 46 back in the.
Yeah, you're going way back in time for me. I can't go back that far. I lived with Max Strong for like 15 years. I don't need to think about other fullbacks. And the last prediction for the day, Ross. Which class is gonna generate more superstars? The 2019 draft or this 2020 draft class?
More stars with this draft, but the brightest star will be last draft.
Fair. Zed, what's your take?
For the sake of being optimistic, I will say this draft.
I think I have to agree with Ross. I really can't provide any other alternate. I think that DK Metcalf has a chance to be amazing, like Pro Bowl, All Pro with Russell Wilson, amazing based upon what he did in his rookie year. If he can build off of that, and I think that there are more players that they drafted this year that are going to see continual action on the field, so they'll have a more impressive class. But the star will be DK from 2019. And gentlemen, that's our show. Final thoughts on the draft.
We didn't have as many picks as I thought we'd get, but I think we used them well.
Yeah, far less trading than I think would have probably happened in a normal scenario. So,
yeah, so I did some research on that. So last year there were 9 round 1 trades made during the draft, and this year there were only 4. So
yeah,
a lot less action draft
I think
day.
the format really did affect that.
Yeah, which is kind of weird to think about, but maybe those teams are just creatures of habit.
I mean, I think it's a little like when you make a trade, there's 3 or 4 people you want to talk to while you're doing that trade. You want to talk to a cap guy and you want to talk to this guy and that guy and whatever. And when you're all in the same room, even though like technology is where it's at and it's super easy, it just feels different. And I just feel like that psychologically was different. And so it do it.
It's not the same. Yeah, for sure.
Very true. Gentlemen, any shout outs tonight?
Shout out to Tony. I'll listen as much as he can and appreciate the support.
Zed?
Shout out to Bruce Matheson in the 1987 Seattle Seahawks, and also shout out to Trey Lance from North Dakota State. Keep an eye on that kid.
I would also like to shout out to Tony for chiming in live. Also, shout out to Jay Adams 2001. Thanks for checking us out on the live podcast here. You can find us at hawkscast.com. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast. Check us out at Seahawks Forum on the podcast. This is the Hawkscast Podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. I am Sam. They are Zeb and Ross, and we appreciate you checking us live. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.